Hi everyone, I am Erik Troy. I'm the writer and director of Calamita Road, a feature film about an armored truck driver and comic book enthusiast who gets stuck on an abandoned road in his armored truck, while a group of robbers are trying to break in and get the money inside. We will be launching our Kickstarter on September 1st. In these episodes, we will be going over the film, the characters, the people involved with making the film, and much more. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back again. Today, I would like to talk about what it's like to live obsessed with making stories. As I've said before, in school as a kid, I would basically just not listen at all in class. In fact, it was so bad that I remember taking an IQ test. And I remember one of the test's questions, like they were asking things that I should have learned in history classes, that I should have retained in my head. Because I should have been studying like a normal kid. And I just couldn't get the one after the other, and it was like, I was like, oh gosh, I was like, geez, I really have been listening. The entire time I've been in my head, in my imagination, daydreaming. And so what happened was, one of the questions came in, who invented the telephone? And immediately I went, Alexander Graham Bell. And they're like, why did you know that? I was like, SpongeBob, of course. In community college, I didn't have any other outlet to learn about film production, but what I did was I took theater classes to learn about acting because I wanted to know how to direct actors. I started doing an improv group, and that was a lot of fun, honestly. We got to play around a lot. I didn't know anything about writing scripts or cameras or anything, and I remember at one point, my mom had asked me like what I wanted for Christmas, and I was like, one thing I want more than anything is a camera. And she got me a Sony Handycam, and I think she was like, yeah, it's just a phase. He's probably going to grow out of it. Am I really going to spend that much money? I don't even know, And I didn't really tell my mom at all about my aspirations to be a filmmaker, because when I was younger, I'd talk to people about ideas and I'd be like, so it's like cool, and like there's like, this person with superpowers, and my mom would be like, that's great, honey. And everybody I'd talk to was kind of like, how interesting. And I was like, well, I guess people don't really care about this as much as I do. So I got this camera, and when I'm trying to apply to colleges later on, I didn't know anything about writing scripts, so I went to Barnes & Noble and I bought a book on screenwriting. It was the only one I could find in New Hampshire, mind you. And thankfully, that book had detailed very specifically what font you use while you're writing. The thing is, there's softwares made for writing screenplays, and I decided to format the whole thing in Microsoft Word because there was nothing mentioned in the book about screenwriting softwares. So I just literally formatted in Microsoft Word so that I could make a proper screenplay as it's supposed to be formatted. This took me hours to do, but that's what I applied to college with. And I wrote my first screenplay that way. And it was about this kid who he kind of just gets swept up into, it's very super bad, like he gets swept up into this whole adventure with these kids. One of them who's kind of a bit of a bully of his, and they actually become buddies by the end of it. And there's this romance interest and all these crazy things that go on. And as it turns out, by the end of it, the kid was having a miserable night, and it was quite obvious. And you find out later that the kid was diagnosed with cancer, and that's why he was so bummed out. And that night just made his life so much better. Another thing I did was I used to draw a lot. In fact, as a kid, my mom would think I was asleep. I would be like, yeah, no, I'm going to sleep. Yeah, sure. And I'd tuck in and all that. And then she'd, go off. And I remember I'd like patiently wait. I'd wait for a good long time until I knew everybody in the house was asleep. And then I'd have a little secret light, and I would just use that sometimes under the bed sheets, and I would just draw scenes from these worlds that I'd make and these ideas that I had. And I didn't really know that much about drawing. It was all what I had picked up from some art teachers in middle school, and that was all it was, just trying to depict these scenes. I have a binder just full of all of these drawings, and it's from countless nights that I should have been sleeping, and I just didn't. When I think about it, it's kind of crazy, actually. So then we get into the college days. In college, it was all about trying to figure out how to use cameras and how to, like the one that I'm using now. I didn't know anything about the technology behind filmmaking at that time, and it was all about that. I got to use a lot of really high-end equipment that my school would allow us to rent out for free, and I learned a lot through that process. I got to learn about how to do sound. My drawing became significantly better because that was a part of the art school. Light and color design had taught me a lot. There were a lot of things that really impacted me. Cinematography, editing, After Effects classes, color grading, and color correction. If you want to know more about those, just feel free to look them up. And actually, I learned a lot from a lot of my fellow students. If they were particularly interested in one facet of the filmmaking world, they would gladly tell me about certain things, about whatever it was that they were interested in. And so I got to make a lot of good friends and meet a lot of good people there and learn a lot of really interesting things. After college, I would say I kind of got into understanding business structure. Starting with that first job, working for the Push Stars, I really kind of had to learn about advertising in particular, like what sells, on top of the fact that I had to learn how to file things like taxes and whatnot. I remember doing up my first invoice for a commercial for, I think it was Lucky Strike Social. I don't remember. But I remember doing up the invoice and trying to figure out, like, what do I charge them? Like, it was something I'd never done before. It was so awkward. But, everybody learns through doing, by trial and error. And all throughout this time that I've been doing all of this, mind you, every second of my day, I am thinking about things. I am building upon my stories. In fact, it's just playlists upon playlists of music that are associated with certain brands that I have in my head that I'm like, okay, that's for that movie and this is for that movie. I think I have 2 video games total. Feature-length films, I think there might be like 18. And I think there's 2 or 3 TV shows. But it's not like I came up with that idea back then and that's the idea. It's more so like I'll have a scene play out through my head and I'll say, ooh, let's write that down. And I write down the whole scene and then I file it away. I have dozens upon dozens upon dozens of writings like that. And then I have dozens and dozens and dozens of notes on things like, this is a very interesting way to do a mentor death. And it's not applied to a specific project, but it's sitting there as like, this holds a lot of weight. And if given the right context, the right situation, I will apply it. Then there's things like building a culture from scratch. There are literally images upon images. I have terabytes of information logged away on ancient cultures and things like that that I use for reference. Artistic movements throughout history and how to pull things from different ideas. I have a whole thing on the design work of Islamic architecture and Celtic knots and things like that. These are things that I reference just for the sake of knowing how to create this one project in particular. And then there's the things for all the other projects as well. I've been researching 18th century Ireland extensively for something that barely touches on the subject of that because of the fact that I want it to be portrayed as realistically as possible. If you ever look at Icarus Dawns, there's a lot of real science that's in there that is entirely informed by a lot of research. A lot of the other projects are like that, probably not to that extent. The other projects, some of them are a little bit lighter on the research. They're a little bit more go with the flow. Just write it as is. It's just for fun. And there's other ones that have historical research. Some of them have science research, things like that. But all of them have this building of like scenes that come up and go like, oh, that'd be interesting. Then maybe this, maybe that. And the point of that is just to like make it so that we can have movies like we used to. It's just to make it so that we can have these movies that have a meaning and a purpose and a story that feels like it's for something, it's serving a purpose, but it's also entertaining us. That's why they call it entertainment. I want to entertain people and I want to provide value with that entertainment. And that's it. There are some life lessons that I have learned throughout the years that I do like to put into some stories. One of those things, for example, is because I have cared so much about doing this job, I've sometimes neglected things that are for my own sake or the people in my own life. And I've realized that neglecting those things is actually being hypocritical if I'm going to write about those things. And that taking the time to take care of the people in my life and to take a little time off of work and see family, friends, things like that. You know, there were moments in time where I'd feel stressed and think to myself, like, oh my God, like, I have to do things. Oh gosh, because like life is not going it's not going to slow down for me. I have to get to a certain place at a certain time. I think that that's something that I've struggled with in the past and come to a realization that I don't need to stress like that. I had this old art teacher from back in the day who used to say, it's just for fun. And when you're having fun, people just want to have fun with you. I don't really stress like that anymore. I just want to make it so that we can have fun. I'm going to keep doing this because it's what I do. I always say that I've tried to make it as easy as breathing. It's just the way I live. And because of that, it's become so natural for me to just go forward and keep moving and keep making, keep writing, keep filming, and keep, pushing my stuff out there. So, if that's any value to you, well then I'm glad that I could provide something in this video. But that's what it's like for me, what I do, why I do it. Well, not really. I guess I didn't really touch on why I do it. Maybe I'll touch on that in a later video. But the whole point of it is that I wanted to just explain to you how much this means to me, how much it's a part of who I am, and how it's just within the fabric of my being. So I'm going to just try to get this first feature film off the ground, and hopefully you all enjoy it as much as I do. They always say like those good movies, they make you laugh, they make you cry, That's the kind of movie that this is, and I want to have that kind of a feeling, and I look forward to making it. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video, and take care. Bye for now. If you would like, please sign up for the emailing list. The link should be somewhere below. If not, we have the Instagram account, which is Calamita Road. We also have our YouTube page. If you do sign up for the email list, when you receive the email saying that the Kickstarter has launched, please send it to any friend of yours that you might think is interested. The more people we get involved with this project, the more that we'll be able to make it with our hands free, basically. If we decide to go through any other avenue of funding, we will have to make concessions, which basically means that we have to do things a little differently from the way that the script is written right now. So if you guys can please share this video out there, share the emailing list, and hopefully we'll be able to get this project off the ground by the time that the spring comes around. Thank you all, and take care. Bye for now.